Hello and good afternoon, CSI157 Section 841 students at Anne Arundel Community College. This tutorial video is going to demonstrate the first PacketTracer lab that we have as our homework. Alright, so I've got PacketTracer opened, and so now I'm going to go ahead and open up the PacketTracer file, or the .pka source file that I need to use for this lab. So if you remember from the previous video, we created some folders and put all the source files into one folder. And so the first PacketTracer activity we have is the Skills Integration Challenge 2.4.1.2. And so I'm going to go ahead and open this file. And I'm also going to make this PacketTracer window a little bit smaller. So the user profile, what I need to do now is I want to fill my information in. Oops, GLI, and I'll leave my email addresses abc@123.com. Here is my PacketTracer file. I'll click OK. And now I'm going to make this a little smaller because remember, there is a window that opens up in the background and you can now see it. It's right here. And this window is going to have all the information that we need in order to complete our configuration. So I'll expand the size out there. Okay, and then we'll come back over here, grab the main PacketTracer window. Alright, there we go. So we can see what's going on. So as you can see here, the PacketTracer Skills Integration Challenge, we have a table here that shows us our addressing information. We have our objectives listed out, the scenario, and so let's take a look at the scenario. So as a recently hired LAN technician, your network manager has asked you to demonstrate your ability to configure a small LAN. Your tasks include configuring initial settings on 2 switches using the Cisco IOS and configuring IP address parameters on host devices to provide end-to-end connectivity. You are to use 2 switches and 2 host PCs on a cabled and powered network. And so you can see here we have a reception PC, and we also have a manager PC, and we have switch is room number or room-145, and this switch name will be room-146. So we have the requirements. It says use a console connection to access each switch, and then you're going to name the switches. We're going to use this string as the password for all lines. We're going to use this string for the secret password. And we're going to encrypt all clear text passwords. We're going to include the word warning in the message of the day banner. We're going to configure addressing for all devices according to the addressing table, which is located up here. We're going to save our configurations, and we're going to verify connectivity between all devices. Now, very important, when I click check results, what will happen is it will bring up a window. It'll show you your elapsed time, but it'll also show you which activities, right, or which tasks, configuration tasks, have been completed. It'll also show you any connectivity testing and what the status is, right? And so then once you're done with this window, when you click close, it will bring you back to the original window. You'll notice there's only one page, so we will not need to go forward or backward. And so there's 90 points here, and you can see we haven't completed anything yet. So the first activity says name the switches room-145 and room-146 respectively. So if I click on room-145, it brings up this window, and I can go to the CLI. And as you can see here, there's already been some activity that's taken place. So if I hit enter, I'm now at the user exec prompt. But I want to make sure that I go to the privileged exec, right? And so now I'm in privileged exec mode. And then to configure, I can type in configure terminal. However, remember that with the Cisco IOS, you can also shorten the commands. And so I'm just going to type conf-t, which is short for configure terminal. This now puts me into the global configuration mode, at which point I can assign a host name. So if I type HOST and hit the tab, you can see that the Cisco IOS will autocomplete the entire command name. And so now I'll enter in room-145 and I'll hit enter. And as you can see, as soon as I hit enter, room-145 is now the switch name. So I'm going to go ahead and close this window, and I'm going to put the name on room 146, and again it'll be the same process. So I'll hit enter, and I'm currently in user exec mode. If I type in enable, enable, or just en for short, that puts me into privileged exec mode, and then from privileged exec mode I'll type in config T to go to global configuration mode. Type in hostname room-146, and you can also simply leave it as host and type in room-146, right? So I could expand the name of the command out by hitting the tab key, or if I didn't really want to see the entire name and I knew that this was the command, I could simply type in host room-146. Okay, and as you can see, the name is right there. The new host name is right there. All right, so let's slide this over. So we've named both switches. It says use the, and it's going to be lowercase x, capital A, lowercase w, 6K, password for all lines. All right, so from here, I can type in line VTY 0-15, and this will capture all lines. So now I would type in password, and let me go ahead and move that over. So it'll be XAW6, XAW6K. Let me make sure that's right. X capital A, W6K. Right, so I'm setting the password on that line. And remember, I need to put in login, right? And you'll see that there are also some arguments that you can use to the login command. One of them is local, but we're not setting up local usernames and passwords yet, right? So I'm just simply using it for logging in. Okay, so now that password has been set on all lines, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to walk through the rest of the steps here on this switch, and then we'll go back and do 145. All right, it says use the 6EBUP secret password. So I will exit out here, and we can do enable secret, and then you can see here it says 0 means an unencrypted password will follow. 5 specifies an encrypted secret password. So it's going to be an unencrypted string that I'm providing, right? And as long as you keep hitting the question mark, you'll get some little prompters that will help you out. So I'll type in 6EBUP, and then that's it. All right. So it says encrypt all clear text passwords. And if you remember, service password encryption is going to allow you to have all clear text passwords encrypted. Now, before we do this, I'm going to go ahead and type end, and this is going to bring me back out. As you can see, I would have to type disable to move to user exec mode, right? But if I try to do a show run from user exec mode, you'll notice that there aren't too many commands that I can execute from user exec mode. And in order to see the running config, I need to be in privileged exec mode. So I'll type en, which is short for enable, and you'll notice that now it's asking me for a password because we've set the enable secret password. So now I need to enter in 6EBUP, and that's much different than what happened the first time. So now that we've set the enable secret password, in order to get into privileged exec mode, I need to provide that secret password. Now if I do the show run command, you can see the enable secret password is listed here as encrypted, but there are other passwords that are not. And so if you look here on our VTY lines, or the virtual terminal lines, you can see that the password we entered is displayed in plain text. So I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and transition into global config mode. So I'll do conf t for configure t. And we're going to do service password encryption. Now remember, this is the plain text string for the password, the same string that we entered in from over here. But when I enter service password encryption, and I'll type in end, and now when I do the show run, the enable secret password was always encrypted, so this is normal. But now, when we come down to the VTY lines, you'll notice that the password that we entered is no longer shown as the plain text string, as the actual password. It is now encrypted. Okay, so we've encrypted all clear text passwords. It says include the word warning in the message of the day banner. So again, we're going to need to transition to global config mode. And once I'm in global config mode, I'm going to type in banner, and we'll hit question mark, and you can see it says MOTD. And now it says line. It says C banner text C, where C is the delimiting character. All right, so we're going to use the $sign as our delimiting character. So when I hit enter, you'll notice that it says enter text message and end with the character $sign. So when I entered the $sign in here, what I was saying was that this $sign character, this character, when I type it in at the end of my message of the day, that is going to tell the iOS that I'm done with my message of the day banner and to go ahead and end. All right, so I will put in please be careful on this system. I'll put in here warning, and we'll also do it in lowercase, warning. All right, so now if I put a $sign and hit enter, you can see that it ends, right? And that $sign, again, when we indicated the $sign up here as the delimiting character, that's the purpose of the $sign, is that it will end the message of the day. Okay, it says configure addressing for all devices according to the addressing table. So I'm on switch room-146, and as you can see up here, room-146 interface VLAN 1 will have this IP address with this subnet mask. And again, this is a /24. We haven't talked about this yet, or we have just very vaguely, but this is the addressing information that we're going to enter in. So I'm still in global config mode. Now I need to go into interface config mode, and specifically I want to go in and configure VLAN 1. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the interface is not shut down, right? So I'll do a no shut. I'm also going to type in IP address, and then this is where you enter your IP address in. So for 146, it's going to be 172.16.5.40 and the subnet mask. So this is a class B address with a class C subnet mask applied. Now, it doesn't ask you, but what you can do is you can add a description, which will be a comment kind of giving you an idea as to what this is, what this address, or why this interface is configured the way it is. And so we'll put in here PacketTracer, PacketTracer lab number 2.4.1.2. And again, this isn't part of the activity, but you can certainly add it in, right? And we've already done no shut on the VLAN 1 interface, and so that interface is up. So now I'm going to type end. All right. Now it says save your configurations. So you can do copy running config to startup config, and this was from the reading in the text, and that will work, and it'll ask you destination, startup config, and yes. And so what this means is if I reload this device right now, these settings that I've just made will still be present in the configuration on the switch when the switch comes back up. So if I do a show run at this point, you can see my enable secret password is here. The host name has been identified here. And we'll come down a little further. All right. So here's interface VLAN 1. You can see the description, PacketTracer. So there's where I put the description in. the IP address on the interface, right? You can also see the banner, MOTD. So please be careful on this system, warning, warning. And the password has been set on the virtual terminal lines. All right, so let me go ahead and reload just to show that once this reboots, those settings will still be present. You can see some good information here. We're running the LAN base image, which means there is no layer 3 functionality. So this switch would be incapable of routing. You would need a multi-layer switch in order to route. All right, and so it's rebooted, and as you can see, it puts us into user exec mode. And remember, we want to move into privileged exec mode by typing the enable command in. Again, we're prompted for the password, which is 6EBUP. And now I'm into privileged exec mode. If I do show run, just as promised, the host name is there, the enable secret password is there. All of our settings are still there. So what would happen if I was to type in ping 172.16.5.40? As you can see, success. So I'm actually able to ping the VLAN 1 IP address on this switch. Okay, so that was 146. So we're going to go ahead and close 146 out. I'm going to pull 145 up, and I'm going to move through a little quicker since we've already walked through this one time. I'm in user exec mode. If I type in EN, you'll notice I did not get prompted for a password because we have not set that up. All we set up on this switch was the host name. So I go to privilege exec mode, which is the # after the host name. Now I'm going to go into global config mode. So we've already set the host name up, but if I wanted to do it again or to change it, I could type in room-145 with the host name command. Now it says use the following password for all lines. So we're going to go line VTY 0 space 15, and that is all of the virtual terminal lines. So the password is going to be XAW6K, right? And then I want to put login, so that way that you're presented with a password prompt when you go to log in. All right, so I can exit out of that, and we'll move up one step in the hierarchy. So the enable secret password, enable secret, and then again, if you do the question mark, each time you can see what the options are that you can provide. And so here we're simply going to provide the password 6EBUP. All right, we're also going to do the service password encryption, and this is going to encrypt all clear text passwords. We're going to include the warning message, so banner MOTD. I'll use the $ again, and then here we can put down, this is your warning. You have been warned. Okay, and then the $ by itself terminates that command. Configure the addressing for all devices, so we're going to go into the interface config mode from global config mode, so int VLAN 1. I want to make sure that I do the no shut, and what no shut actually stands for is no shutdown, right? And so we do not want this interface, we do not want the VLAN 1 interface to be shut down. So this is actually enabling the VLAN 1 interface, and you can see that you receive a message just like we did last time, interface VLAN 1 change state to up, right? Line protocol on interface VLAN 1 change state to up. So I can put in the IP address information, so it's IP address, and we're going to put in 172.16.5.35, and the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0, which is a /24, or it's a Class C mask being applied to a Class B address. And we'll talk more about that later on in the course. I can put a description in. This is my PacketTracer interface for VLAN 1. All right. So we've configured the addressing, and now I'm going to save my configuration. So I can type end, and remember, end takes me all the way back to the privileged exec mode, where I can type in copy running config to startup config. And again, this guarantees that when the switch is reloaded and comes back up, that my configuration, all the information I've just changed, will be preserved. Now, let's take a look and see, yes. So, PacketTracer also supports, and this is actually probably the more common command used that I've seen, write memory. And so write memory does the same thing that copy running config startup config does. And typically, you can just do WRI space mem, and that will also save the running config to the startup config, so that if the switch is reloaded, these changes will be preserved. Okay, so let me do a show run. Let's check. All right, our host name is there. We have our enable secret password is there. Let's check VLAN 1. Yes, we have our description. The IP address is here. It does not say shut down, and that's something I left off, or I forgot to mention on the 146 switch, is that if it said shut down here, that would tell you that this interface is shut down. You can see our banner has been listed and our passwords have been encrypted, and that's it. In fact, let me go ahead and go into global config mode, and then we're going to go into interface config mode, and I'm going to shut that interface down, VLAN 1. So now that shows you that that interface has been shut down. And so I'll talk about the do show run in a minute, and as you can see, it'll tell you, the iOS will indicate if that interface is shut down, right? So typically when you're in configuration, global config mode or interface config mode, any of the config modes, you can't type the commands that you would type from privileged exec in a lot of cases. And so you need to type do and then the command. So if I type do show run, right, which is the command that's going to show us the configuration, and hit enter, that will work, right? But just by itself, if I type show run from inside interface config or global config mode, it will not work. Okay, so let me type no shut. I get a message telling me it's up. So we'll do show run, and as you can see, it no longer says shut down, meaning this interface is up. So now if I jump out here, I'll type in write mem to save my config. And what was my IP address? Let me go ahead and ping 172.16.5.35. All right, and the exclamation marks again are confirmation that the ping is working. You can see success rate is 100%. What would happen if I was to shut that interface down? So we'll go into interface config mode. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to pop out here back to privileged exec mode. Now what happens, and actually you can use the up arrow to recall previous commands. And as you can see now, we're receiving the period instead of the exclamation mark. So that interface is shut down, which means it's not functional. And so our success rate now is 0%. So out of the 5 pings that were sent, none of them successfully worked. So I'd have to go back into global config mode, interface config mode for VLAN 1, and issue the no shut command. Now that interface is up. So let's see. So from here, I don't need to go all the way out to privileged exec mode to run my ping command. I should be able to do it from here. So ping 172.16.5.35. And as you can see, the interface is now back up and working. All right, so let's save our changes to make sure we've accounted for that. All right, so we're good there. So let me shut this window here. So now we've got some PCs, right? So let's take a look at the manager PC. Okay, so here's our manager PC, and you can see you've got the config tab. Whoop, config tab is locked. So it looks like it might already be set. Let me see if we can get any of these. So desktop, let's take a look. So when I click desktop, these are some of the different things that I can use or test things with. So here I'm at the PacketTracer command line 1, and I'm going to type in ipconfig and hit enter. And as you can see, it shows that there is no IP address information set. But if I type in ipconfig-all, let's see if it shows us anything different. So the DHCP servers, it doesn't look like anything is set on this switch just yet. Or I'm sorry, not a switch, on the workstation. So we'll come over to IP configuration. So DHCP would require the use of a DHCP server, and we're not doing that right now, so we're going to set it as static. So on the IP address for the manager workstation, we're going to do 172.16.5.50, right? And I'm getting that information from right over here, that the NIC interface will have this IP address. We know what the subnet mask is. It's going to be 255.255, and you'll notice it auto-filled in the Class B subnet mask, but we're applying a Class C subnet mask. There is no default gateway, right? And the rest of this information can be left as is. All right, so let me close that window. So now if I come back over to, oops, sorry. So now if I come back over to the PC command line, type in ipconfig, and you can see that the IP address has now been applied. So if I were to ping that IP address, so let's ping 172.16.5.50, you can see that those pings are working. So if I'm on the manager, I keep saying switch, if I'm on the manager PC, I'm directly connected in to room 145. So let me see if I can ping the switch room-145, which would be 172.16.5.35. Let's see if we have any activity here at all. And the request is timing out, and there you go. It started to work. Now, this is not unexpected behavior. The reason that this request times out on the initial ping attempt is that on the switch to which this PC is connected, there is no ARP entry or MAC address entry in the cache on this switch. So the first ping will facilitate that entry into the switch's ARP cache, right? And then the switch will have a record of that PC. And so now if I enter that ping command again, it doesn't time out on the first attempt because there's an entry in the cache. Okay, so that's been set up and that works. Let's see, can I ping room-146, which would be the switch that's over here? Let's see if we can ping that. So I'll type in 172.16.5.40. And let's see if that works. And again, we would expect that it's going to time out on the first one and then work on the subsequent ping attempt. So again, if I were to ping it again, we do not have a request timeout on the first one because again, the switch is populating its cache with an entry for the PC. All right, now what if I try to ping the other PC? The reception PC, and we should know that this is not going to work because we have not configured the reception PC. So if I hit enter and I'm trying to ping 172.16.5.60, that every request should time out. And as you can see here, that appears as that is going to happen. And again, we know this because we have not configured the reception PC. So we'll let this run its course. And it's complete. So let me close that window out. I'm going to close out the manager PC. And now we're going to pull up the reception PC. And again, we're going to configure the IP address. The reception PC IP is 172.16.5.60. And again, you can see it auto-fills in a Class B subnet mask because we're using a Class B address. However, we're going to be applying a Class C subnet mask. All right, so let me close that down, and now I'm going to pull the terminal up. Whoops, sorry. Keep clicking terminal. With the command prompt. So if I type in ipconfig, you can see that it shows me that my IP address information has been configured. If I type in ipconfig-all, Shows me some additional information, but again, we're mainly interested in the IP address and the subnet mask, and those are correct. So, can I ping my own address? And actually, before we do this, let me close this window down. Let me, real quickly, this is a little ahead of where we're at today, but I want to describe, let me go from user config mode into, user exec mode to privilege exec mode. So let me get the password in here. So it's going to be 6EBUP. And if you do show MAC address table. So the show MAC address table shows me on this switch what MAC addresses are learned by this switch. And so if I do a show run, you can see we've got some different interfaces here. And if I do the show MAC address table, it's actually tied, and this is coming from VLAN 1, and you can see that these are the MAC addresses. And so we're going to come back to this window, because when I ping from this PC, from the reception PC, there'll be a MAC address entry entered in here. And in fact, if I come over here, I should be able to do a show MAC address table, and you can see that it shows you exactly which port it's learning the MAC addresses from, right? Okay, so let's take one more look at 146. You can see here that we've learned some MAC addresses from FA02, right, as well as FA01. And now we'll come back to the reception PC, go to the command prompt, and I'm going to try to ping all three of these addresses. Try to ping myself first, so 172.16.5.60, and you can see that that works with no issues. Now I'm going to try to ping the switch I'm plugged into, which is switch number 146. So we'll try 40. And again, we would anticipate that this is not going to work for the first attempt. It's going to time out, and then subsequent attempts will work. So if I were to ping it again, and so if I come here and I run, if I come to switch 146 now and run the show MAC address table command, right, you can see that it still sees multiple MAC addresses. And so on the PC window, if I type in ipconfig-all, you can see the physical address, which is my layer 2 MAC address, ends in 5 Charlie Delta 5. So let's see, do we see 5 Charlie Delta 5 over here? And let me slide this to the right. And we certainly do. So here's the MAC address, 000A, and it shows you all the way down to 5 Charlie Delta 5. And so we know that this PC is on port 1 in VLAN 1, and here is the MAC address. Okay, so can I ping, if I can ping my switch, can I ping the other switch, which would be 35. So let's try that. And again, as we would expect, the first ping attempt is going to fail, and then subsequent attempts will succeed without a problem, right? And then for the final test, can I ping the manager workstation? Whoops. And the manager workstation is 50. And it works without a problem. All right, so that was PacketTracer 2.4.1.2. Just to recap, we went ahead and named the switches with the proper names, room 145 and 146. We set the password on all the virtual terminal lines. We set the enable secret password. We encrypted all clear text passwords. We included the word warning in the message of the day banner. We configured addressing for all devices according to the addressing table. We've saved our configs. We've verified connectivity. So now we want to check the results to see our progress. So this is where I would click check results. You've got some overall feedback, right? And now let's take a look at the assessment items. And it says, okay, so it wants the password set on the console line as well, not just the virtual terminal lines. And this is where this becomes very helpful. So I was thinking virtual terminal lines, and it's looking for the console as well. So Let's close this. And this will be very easy to do. So we're going to go from privilege exec into global config mode. I'm going to type in linecon 0, and I'm going to set the password. And let me scoot over here. And the password's going to be XAW6K. And you're going to need to do that if you want to log in. All right, so let's type in. I'm going to save my config with write memory. So I'll close this one out. We'll pull up switch room 146. Again, I'm in privilege exec mode here. I'm going to go into global config mode. I'm going to go to the console line, and I'm going to type in password XAW6K, and that would need to be used during login. We're going to type in end, and then write mem to save my config off. Now to test this, we would need to use a console connection between the two, and you'll notice it says use a console connection to access each switch, and that's the first step, and we'll come back to that in just a second. Now we'll click check results. It says congratulations, you successfully completed PacketTracer Skills Integration Challenge. So we'll take a look at the assessment items. You can see my score is 100 out of 100. I've completed all 24 tasks that were required. And this gives you a listing of a breakdown of the tasks. As you can see here, we have checks on everything. Connectivity tests were correct and all successful, right? And again, you can come in and check and see how you've done. All right, so let me go ahead and close this window out here. All right, and that completes the PacketTracer 2.4.1.2 Skills Integration Challenge. Again, this is for CSI157 Section 841 students at Anne Arundel Community College, Spring 2014 semester. I hope you enjoyed this video, and best of luck.